Imagine a dedicated first responder who gets an invitation to a disaster training exercise. They gear up, check their oxygen levels, and burst through the double doors ready for a hazardous spill, only to find a dozen people in business casual, sipping coffee and opening laptops. Our hero just walked into a tabletop exercise. It's an awkward misunderstanding, and it happens because emergency managers and external participants often lack a shared vocabulary for these different types of training. To fix that, we have to start with the simulation exercise, or SimEx. This is a partial representation of reality, taking the most crucial characteristics of a real emergency and replicating them within a protected, risk-free setting. Mastering this specific vocabulary provides the structural bridge between simple roleplay and professional coordination. When everyone speaks the same language, the group can accurately identify system failures and correct them in a classroom before a genuine disaster puts lives on the line. The easiest way to understand the roles in a simulation is to think of it like a movie production. The facilitator and the controller act as your directors, guiding the room to hit specific goals. Meanwhile, the evaluators are critics, taking notes on how the response plan holds up under pressure. That makes the participants the actors. They actually respond to the crisis, working within their real-world structures, like an emergency operations center. But an actor needs a script. In a SimEx, that's called the scenario. This is the pre-planned storyline, the what, where, and when, that dictates the entire scope of the exercise. We plot exercises on a matrix. First is the drill, practicing physical actions. To the right, the tabletop exercise, discussing plans without deploying gear. As complexity grows, the functional exercise tests several departments. Finally, the full-scale exercise deploys everyone into the field. Matching the exercise to your team's skill level prevents waste. You wouldn't want to spend millions on a full-scale field deployment when your team really just needed to talk through the script during a tabletop. Suppose the director is launching urban flood scenario, requiring a mass evacuation. The physical stakes of the disaster are suddenly front and center. To keep participants engaged, the scenario needs high fidelity. The more realistic the simulation feels, the more likely responders are to treat the exercise as a high-stakes emergency rather than a game. Facilitators often use Moulage to heighten that realism. This is specialized makeup used to simulate traumatic injuries on volunteer victims, forcing medical teams to have a visceral, real-world reaction to the wounds they see. The directors also use what's called the inject. This is a scripted piece of information, dropped into the simulation to act as a sudden plot twist that participants didn't see coming. Imagine an inject arrives stating that the main evacuation bridge has just collapsed. This forces participants off their rehearsed scripts and tests their true ability to adapt to a changing crisis. All of these twists are managed by the SimCell. This is the behind-the-scenes control room that coordinates the injects and generates the chaos to keep the simulation moving. The SimCell focuses on escalation, deliberately worsening the situation to test the organization's surge capacity. They want to see exactly how much pressure the system can handle before it starts to fail. A disaster can last for days, but a simulation only lasts a few hours. To bridge the gap, facilitators use a time jump. They fast-forward the clock by hours or days to see the long-term consequences of a participant's early decisions. When the clock jumps, participants must maintain their situational awareness. They have to commit to their role play and stay in character, even when the timeline moves faster than reality. Readiness isn't proven when a plan runs smoothly. It's proven when the SimCell pushes the scenario to the breaking point and the participants maintain their composure anyway. Eventually, the controller calls End X. This is the formal declaration that the simulation is over and all roleplay must stop. The room usually echoes with a collective sigh of relief as the radios go quiet. The physical stress of the scenario has faded, leaving a short window to document the group's most honest observations while the memory of the crisis is still fresh. Before anyone leaves the room, the group holds a hot wash. This is an immediate, informal debriefing session held right on the set. This captures raw, unfiltered reactions. By discussing the exercise immediately, participants are less likely to rationalize their mistakes or rewrite what actually happened after they've had time to calm down. That raw data from the hot wash feeds into the after-action review, or AAR. This is the formal, permanent document that tracks the exercise's results and identifies what needs to be fixed. Evaluators categorize feedback using a plus-delta chart. The plus column identifies what worked, while delta marks what needs to change. This translates chaotic observations, like radios died, into concrete policy. No communication becomes a formal directive to procure backup batteries for the EOC. Understanding this specific vocabulary allows everyone to focus on the problem at hand rather than struggling with the mechanics of the simulation itself. Every mistake made during a SimEx is just a data point for your next AAR. Memorize the terms, trust the facilitators, and embrace the plot twists in